Inner child healing, trauma release, nervous system reset, shadow work. You cannot escape these terms on social media nowadays. It has quite literally become a trend. And to be honest, I think it's great that we're so much more vocal about topics around mental health, because even in the big 2025, mental health unfortunately is still a very stigmatized topic. So I think bringing awareness to these things and speaking about them more openly and offering tools and making help more accessible than ever is actually a good thing. However, what I'm a little concerned about, and I think this always happens when something becomes a trend, is that it can completely backfire. And even something in the name of healing can quickly turn into something that ends up being harmful to you. Because sometimes this endless cycle of healing yourself just sounds like a perpetual cycle of self-optimization. It just sounds like perfectionism disguised as self-care. Now, you might very well have things about yourself that you might want to address with a professional that's actually harmful to you or to others. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what professional help is there for. And I do think, by the way, that everyone can benefit from therapy, so I'm just leaving that there. But what I'm really talking about is healing as a facade for a lack of self-acceptance. And I fell into that trap myself. Like, for a very long time, I would try to fix myself, try all kinds of different things, because there were just certain things about me that I didn't like. Like, my inner world just sometimes felt like so much to carry. But eventually, over time, and I remember this moment very vividly, something clicked in my brain. And I think it was also just me being exhausted, like absolutely exhausted from constantly trying to fix things about myself, that I almost got angry. Like, I was asking myself, when do I get to live? How long will I have to heal? How much longer will this go on before I can just be? And those were just questions towards myself. Like, no one else put me through that, but I think I was just under the impression for so long that if I use all of these tools and I go to therapy and I just lay it all out on the table, that I will just re-emerge as this new version of myself, as this like phoenix arising from the freaking ash. And that also caused frustration, because I had this expectation towards what healing would look like, or what I would look like by the end of it. And then when that didn't happen, I was so disappointed at myself. I was angry. I thought this was gonna look different. I thought I would never encounter these emotions again, like once I'm addressing them and working through them and figuring out where they come from. But then years down the line, I would feel like everything is quite cyclical. Like, I would get better and then would encounter situations again, or just change like internally again, and then feel these waves of emotions again that I didn't want to feel. And so I was like, well, then it's not working. Like, something here is not working. And the point was actually not that it wasn't working. The point was that my expectation towards what healing was going to look like was so off and so unfair to myself that it just caused this immense sense of frustration by the end of it. Because as my therapist put it, the goal was never to never encounter these emotions again, to never be uncomfortable again, but rather to look at them from a different perspective once they arise again, to not have them control so much of yourself once they come up again. And I can't lie, I didn't like that answer at all. I didn't like it. I wanted someone to tell me that I could reach that perfect version of myself. Not even perfect, because I wasn't looking at it like that, because if I did, I wouldn't have tried to go for it, because I would have felt like, yeah, this is just unrealistic. But I had this version of myself still in my head that was different from who I was now, right? So I didn't want someone to tell me that that wasn't the goal. I wanted someone to tell me the opposite. I wanted to hear that if I just work long enough at it, it will change. Like, I will get what I want. I will get to this version of myself that I would rather have. And that's exactly that lack of self-acceptance. But instead of surrendering to who we are, we want to hold on to that sense of control. We want to hold on to these tools that we have, because maybe if I just work hard enough, if I just heal hard enough, then I will finally get to that version of myself. And that only perpetuates that lack of self-acceptance. What I had also noticed about myself was that because I became so focused on healing, I also became so hyper aware of everything that made me uncomfortable. Every sense of discomfort, like everything that felt negative to me, was something that I had to fix, and it moved the goalpost further when it came to what my healed version was actually like, or what being healed would actually mean. Like, the goal was moving further and further away from me because all of a sudden there were so many things in me and around me that I just needed to heal and fix. And what that does also is it takes you out of the moment and it puts you at this like meta layer of like being in this observant position where you're constantly scanning everything for discomfort, faults, wounds, scars. You're never present. You're always looking at everything from a lens of what needs to be fixed. And that's the opposite of where you want to be. That sense of control you might feel because you're always in this observer role and you're always working towards your healing. It might feel good for the moment. It might feel good in some way, but it will never make you present and it will never actually ground you in the present reality. And life only ever happens in the moment. Life doesn't happen behind you or before you. It only ever happens now. And being grounded in the present moment is so important to actually feel good about yourself. And sometimes it can be hard to determine if there is something that actually needs attention and that you actually need to work on, or if it's something that you're just overly hyperfixated on. And I think what helps is that you can ask yourself if this healing is something that is expanding your life and is opening up your life, or is it something that is delaying your life? Now, that's another problem that can arise from this healing sphere, is that sometimes we think we're not good enough yet to have a certain experience. Like, we need to reach a certain level to be able to have that experience, or else I'm not good enough for it, or I might ruin it. Now, it's totally fair sometimes to want to retract a bit and like take a breather, take a step back, but that has nothing to do with constantly feeling like you're not good enough. If you're constantly feeling like you can't have a certain experience because you're just not good enough as a person yet, that is a problem. Like, if you're constantly revisiting every interaction you've had, every situation you've been in, you're always evaluating everything that you do, and you always come out feeling guilty and ashamed because you're not living up to this specific version of yourself that you have in your mind. That's not good for you. Allow yourself to be, allow yourself to bring yourself with flaws, with mistakes, with scars, with wounds, with fears. Like, just allow yourself to be. Like, healing should serve life. It should not replace it. It should not delay life. You're always growing, you're always changing. Healing is not this separate thing that you do on the side and then you return to life. That's not it. Give yourself the permission to exist now. Like, maybe you don't need another tool. Maybe you don't need like another buzzword to better understand yourself and become even more self-aware of yourself. Maybe you need to do a little less. I'm still learning all of this myself because it's hard to bring yourself with all of your flaws and all your fears and anxieties and mistakes. It's hard, and at the end of the day, we're all afraid to be rejected. And because we're afraid to be rejected, we often end up rejecting ourselves. But self-acceptance will anchor you back into the now. Healing and growth and change and all of that, it always happens. Life always moves. But allow to be present rather than take control of everything that's happening to you. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you soon.